Betsy and Thomas here for the American Intelligence Media, and today we are going to decode some Trump tweets. We are looking at a bundle from June 13th, 2019, and also one on the 14th and the 15th. POTUS is tweeting so quickly, we just have to grab the ones that we find of interest and we can deep dive on. How are you today, Thomas?
Good, Betsy. I'm so excited to be back from our vacation, which really wasn't vacation. It was investigative journalism. And I'm so pleased to see that while we were gone, some things happened. But basically, as you can see from these tweets, it has been a non-stop onslaught against those pathetic Democrats. And now we're going to have to change its name from Washington District of Columbia to Washington District of Comedy. Because this is like looking at a bad comedy club when you see what the Dems are up to. And what Trump is doing is just squishing them. So it's beautiful. So we just keep laughing in the conclave as they roll back in from their investigative journalism. They just keep laughing. Now, there's a few issues that we need to help decode because some of these things do get complicated.
Okay, remember, folks, if you want to read the tweets, you can go into the description box, and there is a link that will take you to what we're talking about. The first one, I meet and talk to foreign governments every day. I just met with the Queen of England, UK, the Prince of Wales, the PM, that would be Prime Minister, of the United Kingdom, the PM of Ireland, the President of France, and the President of Poland. We talked about everything, and he's got that in quotations. Should I immediately call the FBI about these calls and meetings? How ridiculous. I would never be trusted again. With that being said, my full answer is rarely played by the fake news media. They purposely leave out the part that matters.
Now, mind you, Betsy, this is the best that the Dems can get. To take a hypothetical question from George Stephanopoulos, who's a complete CIA agent. We all know that. Everybody knows that. Just look at his history. Nobody could be any more corrupt or crook than George Stephanopoulos. So his question, it was a loaded question. And, of course, Trump's answer in relationship to that was, well, sure, I listened to the opposition research upon an opponent, and then I may turn it into the FBI. And then he thought about it for a second. And then he realizes that Christopher Wray and the entire FBI is 100% compromised. And you could literally see it on his face where maybe I wouldn't give it to the FBI. Why? Because Christopher Steele's dossier was opposition research given by foreign agents. And what did Obama do, who knew about it the entire time and directed it? Because we have proof of that in the struck page text messages. He did nothing. Matter of fact, it was directed through our own intelligence community, and it was all foreign agents who prompted it, because we used Five Eyes in Britain. But we also used Israel, we used Ukraine, we used Estonia, we used all these other countries to come up with opposition research, which was not only not turned over to the FBI, but it was in fact in many cases created by the FBI, amplified by the FBI, leaked to the media as if it were true, as a conspiracy and literally a crime of treason, of sedition against a candidate in an election, presidential election, by the way, against President-elect and President Trump. And so, in fact, this was a regime change. And what they're talking about here is that they're saying that Trump should be held, accountable for his treasonous remark that he would listen to opposition research. Now, let me just very clearly point out that when he says everything, that means he's already been told. Here's what he's been told. Here's what he was told. And when he was talking to these people, they were saying to him, how can Joe Biden run when China has already said that $1.5 billion deal was done for Hunter Biden based upon their relationship with Joe Biden? So, in fact, Joe Biden's going to go back to the communism led by Hillary and Bill Clinton through China. And so Biden is basically saying, China's cool. Everything's great with China. Why? Because his son got a $1.5 billion deal, and now they're turning on him. Oh, how about Ukraine? Where slews of people coming forward saying Hunter Biden needs to go to jail because of what Joe Biden did to basically strong arm a lawyer who was going after Hunter Biden for his illegal activity. What was that illegal activity? Getting loans for Ukraine for the very gas company that he now sits on the board as a paid board member. And so he and Christopher Hines, John Kerry's stepson, they both got fantastic deals in Ukraine and China. So when we talk about opposition research coming forward that is not reported to the FBI, did Joe Biden, when his son got those deals, reported to the FBI? No. What we're talking about is they didn't even quote Trump correctly, and that's all they have to hang it on. They attack everything he does. So the only thing they can hang it on is one simple, tiny hesitancy when he said, I might not report it to the FBI. I wouldn't report it to the FBI because why? They'll be working for Joe Biden. Let's say that it's Joe Biden who's the candidate that they give the Oppo research to Trump on. Well, let's remember the FBI is still working for Joe Biden.
Thomas, the FBI, really? We've had citizens send letters because they're very concerned about the missing Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She's missing. So we're calling the FBI so that they can go and check and see what her status is. And no one at the FBI has done anything. So why would you call the FBI to try to help you find people or solve crimes?
Absolutely. They don't do anything but, as people are saying clearly now, as we've said all along, cover up their own crimes. That's what they're busy doing. And the proof of this is anytime one of these major people, Karl Rove or Ollie North or James Clapper or John Brennan, anytime they come out, lie, get caught, they're perjurers, they're breaking their security contracts, what happens? They become a paid political news pundit who is a traitor because what they're telling you on the news is executive privileged information. So it's also security privileged information. So everything they're saying should put them in jail. But then they turn around and accuse Trump of that. Here's the deal. It doesn't matter. Never in history has anyone ever questioned what a president has said to another world leader until Trump came along. We know that Obama, because we caught him off mic, again and again saying things like to Putin, "No, don't worry. After the election, I can do a whole lot more." But, basically, I have two faces here. Hillary Clinton saying, "I have two faces that I show to the world." Blah, 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 blah. They have been caught so many times. And both of them are communists. They worked for the Russian government and for the Chinese government the entire time they worked for the government. They actually were agents of China. Let's remember, this is going to come up in one of these tweets. Judicial Watch just proved what we said all along. And it's the second time Judicial Watch has proved it. Third time it's been proven. February 2015, Hillary's emails. The FBI went to her server in her basement. That's where it was, believe it or not. And they found that China had already hacked into her server.
Probably didn't hack. She just invited them in. I mean, seriously.
When I make the joke that China was receiving a courtesy email for every single one of the 730,000 emails under question here for Hillary's crimes of espionage and what she did wrong with her server and tweeting all this information loosely, which caused 10 Americans who were in China to basically be outed, and they're dead now. That's Hillary. No one wants to talk about those people. No one wants to talk about Benghazi. No one wants to talk about the fact that her BlackBerry and the way she used her server told the whole world everything she was doing, and it cost human lives.
So what you're saying is that, and with all seriousness, Hillary Clinton is a Chinese operative.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, okay. No, wait a minute. Because you have to clear your head. You got to get out of that she's a Democrat or she's a globalist or whatever. She is a communist, a Chinese operative, but then also Dianne Feinstein.
And Mitch McConnell and his wife.
And folks, you've got to look at China Elaine Chao. Her father is a shipping magnate in China. Her family business is in shipping, and she is the Secretary of Transportation. Don't tell me that this is just a big coincidence.
The connections to China had infiltrated everything, the Office of Personnel Management, the entire military, everything. There was nothing that China had not effectively infiltrated. And what did the FBI do about it? Nothing. What did the CIA, NSA? Nothing. Why? Because Walmart, China, and remember China's claim on Taiwan, because when you say China, if you don't explain that Taiwan's part of it, then you do not have the picture the way that it really is. So Taiwan and China together producing more than 50% of our manufactured household goods for years and years because of Hillary Clinton sitting on the Walmart board, the Walton family board, because basically Walmart is China. And Arkansas was sold out to the Chinese when the Clintons were there. So we're talking about the fact that we keep hearing China, Russia, 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 Russia. We should be hearing China, 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 China. China had won the war until Trump came along. Our missiles have their semiconductors and their microchips in them, which have zero-day programs, backdoors, the mechanical engine on the microchips. We could have launched anything we wanted at China, and they could have turned it off.
Well, not to mention the rollout of 5G across our nation is really a Chinese operation, because once they turn that 5G on, they can eliminate all of us.
Sterilize us and walk in without shooting a single bullet.
This
Correct.
is not a joke.
No, and Huawei is Britain. Don't forget that.
Let's not. Well, what is the relationship to the UK and China?
One and the same.
Explain.
China never got free from British control, just like none of us ever got free of British control, just like Israel is controlled by a British Zionist, just like you can't. We're going to go into Iran. We might as well go into it now.
Go ahead, right now.
People are saying now, and they're just coming out saying, oh, this is the greatest revelation, and here's the revelation. The Brits lost control of the oil of Iran. You didn't? How long did it take you to notice that, folks? China and Russia came in and took over where the Brits, the United Kingdom, and the French were lying and cheating to try to keep the oil control that they had previously in Iran. And of course, the radical Islamic fascists who run the country, that's what the big deal is about, okay? So Britain was really wanting to continue a deal with Iran. That's why they want the sanctions stopped, the American sanctions stopped, and they want Iran to go back to building nuclear weapons. Because remember, Iran has said clearly, once the second stage of the sanctions were put on, and they showed us the facilities where uranium is being enriched. And they show that they've never stopped. And they showed the underground facilities where their nuclear experimentation continues. So now they have Russia and China giving them missiles. Hello? That means Iran is a nuclear country. And the Brits and the French, they got knocked out. Now, what happened?
What do you mean the French and the Brits got knocked out?
Because the Chinese and the Russians came in and did a new oil deal that pushed the British, the last influences of the British and the French out, and they were going to try to bring an oil pipeline into Europe, different than, of course, the Russian Nord Stream 1 and the one that comes through Iraq and through Turkey and into Europe. So,
but you just said that UK and China are aligned, but now they're not in this particular situation.
You have to remember that when you talk about the Brits, you talk about a two-faced organization, three-faced organization, really, because they have two faces. One, that they play political, that they're not friends with the Chinese. Complete insanity. They're one and the same.
Oh, that's the same face that says they're friends with America.
It's the same face that says they don't do business with Russia. Lie. They do all their, except for the Uranium One deal and then Britain's Rio Tinto mines here in America that then they do enrichment of uranium here. They do their business for their nuclear facilities with Russia. Okay? So if Russia is supposed to be what NATO is supposed to be standing against, and all of the effort of America, Britain, and the European Union is to stand against Russia, why is Britain doing business with Russia for all of their nuclear, and why is America doing business with Russia for the majority of their nuclear needs? All their uranium. I've gone into this many times. So Uranium One is a battle between the last battle for uranium, because uranium's on its way out, thorium's on its way in, And the Brits and the Russians are fighting over the last pieces of the battle
what
here.
What you're really showing us is a higher level of the principalities and the spirits of the time that really are governing the world. I mean, we see it in different layers.
That's exactly what we're really dealing with.
I don't know how to describe it, but here, some people see Democrats and Republicans, but if you get over that, you see really globalists versus nationalists, and you see that transcends national borders, where we have patriots all over the world trying to protect their sovereign nations. But then when you get even to a higher level, you see that there are factions, like you just said the two faces of the UK. Well, I would imagine that's the elites and then perhaps the monarchy, right? Because then you get at a higher level and you see that the Queen really does believe that she is the ruler of the world. She
Correct.
must be in conflict, though, with the Pope, who also sees himself as a ruler of the world, but kind of from the spiritual angle. I mean, so then you get this, you go, whoa, really, how is our world organized, Thomas?
Exactly as you just said. The Queen, the Vatican, and Washington, D.C. is its military arm.
So if we are going to defeat this and bring peace to the earth, we really need to look at the highest levels of operation.
We need to end the monarchy. We need to stuff a potato in the Pope's mouth because he is doing nothing but causing trouble, and he is a Jesuit.
Well, that's easy to say, but how is an ordinary person supposed to do that?
Well, the Catholic Church is standing up against him, and now that he's written his 12 books of dogma, which basically has desecrated every single sacred aspect of the Roman Catholic Church, he has so many enemies, he probably will be deposed. The Queen herself, simply the monarchy of England needs to end, and the United Kingdom needs to be broken apart. It's nothing more than basically a corporate conglomeration monopoly that is an offshore storage facility for money taken from all sovereign nations that those people who took it paid no taxes on, the Queen herself being the number one person stealing from her 54 Commonwealth nations, and 55 America, and 56 Israel, and 57 that would be Britain. Well, Britain doesn't control China and Russia, but their economic interests, where do the real economic interests of China manifest? Only in the economic free zones. They're playing capitalism, but only in Shanghai, Singapore, and Hong Kong, which are, all British, basically. British, Chinese, mix, amalgamation. That's where they play capitalism. But when you lose and you make too much money in China, they simply kill you. So totalitarianism and capitalism cannot possibly be mixed together in an effective government.
And then we also see another layer of control somewhere in this mix of corporatism and transnationalism.
Oh, completely. And that's when then the corporate dynasties come in. So the British monarchy also has corporate. Anyone who joins the Privy Council protects the Queen's business 100%. You can't talk about it, but you are doing it for her. And so the Privy Council is not part, really, in my opinion, and they say they aren't even, of the British government. The Queen has no supposed power in Britain. Lie, lie, lie. The Privy Council controls everything. The Queen and the monarchy control everything. And the members of Parliament, the only ones who are significant, they all have vows that they've made to the Queen. And those vows say that they can never say anything bad about the Queen or monarchy. In other words, it's an insular system. It's an old boys club. When you have a monarchy, you can't lose. When you are the Pope, you can't lose. When you are the most powerful nation in the world, Washington, D.C., you can't lose. Why? Because you simply can blow more people up than the other people. So, yes, you're absolutely right in everything you said, and we cannot forget for 1 second that Joe Biden will turn us back to Chinese and Russian communism, as Hillary Clinton did, as Obama did, except he also added the Muslim Brotherhood. But he didn't support the Muslim Brotherhood, though he was a member, and though he was a radical Islamic fascist. He bombed 7 nations without any approval of war by the Congress, killed 2 million people, and put 58 million people into refugee status, which created the invasion of Europe and the invasion of America. So Barack Obama is worse than a communist. He is like a new form of jihad communism.
Well, as Tom Fitton points out, he can still be impeached.
Yes, he can be, and I hope that day will come. Now, when we're talking about Iran, I guess I drifted there.
And I know, but
I completely
then we got to get
drifted.
back to the tweets.
Okay, I completely drifted, but let me just say, when you say Iran, you have to say the Iran Revolutionary Guard, which has just been declared a terrorist group. So therefore, we can bomb them at any time now. Any representative. Those boats that showed up with the symbol of the Iranian National Guard right on them. Okay, I want to ask the question. And folks, please go back to what we've shown you in terms of perception management and the way that this is handled. You got to ask the question, who took the dadgum film of this Iranian boat with markers on it, going up to the ship that had 2 holes blown in it, but one of the mines didn't work effectively, and they supposedly went up to the hole and supposedly recovered the mine, and they have a film of this. Who filmed that?
Either friendlies or idiots.
If it was a friendly, then they would have informed the United States Navy. They would have sent an attack Cobra helicopter, and they should have blown them out of the water. It is impossible to imagine that a speedboat in a zone where the Iranian Revolutionary Guard has already said they're going to blow everything up. And previously when they did this, they literally, years past, have blown up, 180, 200 ships?
Well,
why would we ever doubt that they're going to do it?
When I say friendly, I mean someone who needed that news to get out into the network. Somebody had to take a picture of it.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Friendly, but who was that? Why couldn't they then report it? And when the ship reported it, why didn't the United States Air Force send a very quick plane to track? And all they have to do, they can put a laser tag on it, and they can follow that boat anywhere.
So you're saying it was a false flag?
I'm saying the following. The deal right now is, who wants this to happen, and who doesn't want oil spilt there? Okay, this is the deal. Why do these attacks, they weren't done with torpedoes, they weren't done with mines, they were done with a magnetic mine stuck to a ship above the waterline, which was simply for effect. Who would do this? Who caused the other ones, all above the waterline?
I would say Gina Haspel.
I would say it's one of the following culprits. Saudi Arabia, Qatar, the United Arab Emirates, Israel, Britain, France, Russia, China. They all are involved in what I've been telling you is the real war, and that is the war between Qatar and Iran, who act like they're friends now because they share one of the, I think it's the second largest natural liquid gas reserve in the world, the North and South fields, which are in the waters between them. And so they want to get to that, right? But they're too busy attacking Israel. Why? Because Barack Obama gave them $150 billion to do so. $1.5 billion for a debt we didn't owe them. And then no one knows why he gave them all that money. But that was used for 350 Islamic terrorist missiles that were fired at Israel just in less than the last year. And then John Kerry's over there trying to broker a deal to say, ignore Trump, and I'm going to get the sanctions lifted. And then you have Angela Merkel and the European Union saying, we're going to skirt around and give you $500 million, and we're going to keep up the sanctions deal. We're going to keep up the deal, the agreement that we had with you, against America's wishes. So we have the European Union violating those sanctions. That's the only reason that the sanctions haven't collapsed the Iranian Revolutionary Guard and the Islamic fascist Muslims who rule Iran. Iran is a Persian nation. This has happened in every place that the Muslims have ever gone. They try to subsume what is going on. So the first recent bombings were right at the ports of the United Arab Emirates. Okay? So the new bombings in the Straits of Hormuz, this is to make it look even more like it's Iran. Okay? So this could be a setup, and the United States government needs to stop playing the games of making these announcements. If they have proof it was the Iranian Revolutionary Guard and they couldn't intercept that boat, all the people need to be fired who have been sent there to stop that exact thing, which was a warning, which we've been given over and over and over again. Then why aren't we doing anything about it? That they zoom up to an oil freighter in a speedboat hundreds of miles from their own country in free waters, and no one is no satellites are able to tell us this? We can't laser tag them from a satellite and follow them? No. All insane. Is this a false flag? Yes. Who did it? We don't know. That's the whole point of a false flag for us who are witnessing it. The ones who did it are trying to make it look like it's other people. So they're trying to say that, they've recovered some materials that show that it's from Iran. Hello, Iran is using Russian and Chinese materials and missiles. How do you determine that it's from Iran? So, all I'm saying is, this stinks. It doesn't seem right. And all I can say is, Mr. President, do not do anything. Simply attack those speedboats. The second you see them, the second you see an Iranian speedboat out in free waters, stop them. That's stupid to do anything else.
But it's also timing. False flags that have a certain timing, and that's why I said Gina Haspel, because right now we are looking closely at the CIA and the FBI, Senior Executive Service, and they need to deflect attention someplace else. And I say the CIA has access to do something like that. So I'm going to still stick with the CIA, but you go with everybody else. So we got everybody covered.
But I'm going to throw the Brits in there.
Okay, well, Gina Haspel worked for the Brits. She
I
worked
know.
there in the London office. She's probably coordinated everything.
I don't doubt that.
So-
And what you're saying is absolutely right. And remember, Iran is nothing more than the new megaphone for radical Islamic terrorism.
Yes.
And what they're doing is what was going on in Syria until Trump said, I'm not fighting that war. And now they want him to fight a war in Iran. Who wants him to fight in a war? All those people I mentioned. Even the Iranian people. Will Trump do it? I don't think he's that stupid.
Okay, well, let's just run through these last few on the 13th real quickly if we can, because the 14th I know we're going to spend some time on. And this is just, we have Senator Mark Warner spoke at length and in great detail about extremely negative information on me with a talented entertainer purporting to be a Russian operative. Did he immediately call the FBI? No, in fact, he didn't even tell the Senate Intelligence Committee, of which he's a member. And then you've got Adam Schiff, and who doesn't remember Adam Schiff in that radio show? But anyway, he took calls from another person, also very successfully purporting to be a Russian operative. Did he call the FBI? Or even think to call the FBI? No, the fact is that the phony witch hunt is a giant scam where Democrats and other really bad people spied on my campaign. They even had an insurance policy just in case crooked Hillary Clinton and the Democrats lost their race for presidency. This is the biggest and worst political scandal in the history of the United States.
Amen, amen, and amen. Mark Warner is a traitorous, and I'm sorry, Preet Bharara. We're not going to stop saying treason because this is treason.
And we also need to say execution.
Yes, Mark Warner.
Because we must make a historical mark here of what has happened to our country so this never happens again, and people will really deeply think that eventually you will all get caught and you will all have to pay for your crimes.
They used to chop off their heads and hang them on London Bridge. We need something like that.
Yeah.
So Mark Warner needs to absolutely meet the fate of a treasonous, traitorous, seditious non-American. Because why? He worked with Christopher Steele, who worked with Ukrainians, Russians, Estonians, and all kinds of other people to pay him to give a false report to the Senate Intelligence Committee. And before that, it was Dianne Feinstein. She was the minority leader there. But you have to remember, Richard Burr was the majority leader at this time when all this was going on. He's a rhino. Please make sure we don't reelect him because he's a lying piece of manure. He allowed Mark Warner to again and again communicate with Christopher Steele through Bruce Orr and otherwise directly communicate, begging him to come and make these false reports directly to the Senate Intelligence Committee on Trump without ever telling anybody. Anybody, not the FBI, nobody. Not even his committee members. He wanted to do this secretly. He offered money to Christopher Steele to write these. As a matter of fact, one could actually say Mark Warner, along with the complicit Richard Burr and along with Dianne Feinstein, were the initial people, along with John McCain, who said to Christopher Steele, oh, yeah, we'll pay you. They probably did go to the FBI secretly because the FBI started paying them, which we told everybody and no one believed us. From March of 2016, Christopher Steele was being paid by the FBI, and we don't know by who else. And we know that the Senate Intelligence Committee was begging him to come to make a report to them on completely salacious, false, unverified information. Now, the FBI's job is to verify things before it gets passed on, and that's the reason they couldn't make any real direct, open, overt contact. But what is really happening here is Mark Warner and the Intelligence Committee and Dianne Feinstein, China Steen, who jumped off the committee after she released the alibi or the closed-door testimony of Glenn Simpson, which I call his alibi, so that everybody would be on the same page. Nobody's on the same page. All the rats, as they're jumping off the burning ship, are telling different stories, and it's just beautiful. That's why we sit back and laugh. The new ones, Jonathan Weiner, Victoria Nuland, the ones we've been outing all this time. Now, we have the absolute direct evidence that they were 100% complicit in all of this, and they are the ones who solicited remarks about Trump to say that Russia had compromised material on him, when in fact we now know for an absolute fact that China had all of the compromising material on Hillary, and Russia, they didn't care because they were best friends with Hillary. They didn't care. They wanted Hillary to be president.
And then you've got the other narrative that's being pushed right now, that the Brits were actually over here trying to help us.
Yeah, and don't forget, in between the lines, we have to stick in John Brennan paid $100,000 to a variety of people, Sergei Millian being one of them, to go to Europe and find the PP dossier, the PP video to add to the dossier, which the dossier said was they had. And they never had it, and they never did. And John Brennan literally paid our tax dollars to a ex-Russian who plays like he's not a Russian spy, but he is.
Who?
Sergei Millian.
Okay. Uh-huh.
Parachenko, of course, he changed his last name so we wouldn't absolutely know that he was a Russian spy. But anyway, and he's come out with his excuses and all that. It's funny watching their alibis. It's just absolutely hysterical. John Brennan paid $100,000 to a variety of people, but for sure, we have the proof of Sergei Millian. Then you got Comey. Comey paid Franklin Slate money to come up with the fake story. He paid, through the FBI, 6 different news agencies. We know that Devlin Barrett, we know that Ali Watkins, we know all of these different people who were directly, we know Daniel Richmond, his friend, Comey's friend, these people were all paid to be spies, to work against Trump during this time, and now they want to turn around and say that Trump should be impeached because of his treasonous response that he'd listened to opposition research on a candidate he was running against. And I just pointed out, I'm sure he just did. I'm sure he got his ears filled about Joe Biden on every single person that he talked to.
Listen to something, because the 17 intelligence agencies certainly aren't giving him truth.
Oh, absolutely not. And so let's remember, Adam Smith, pencil neck, was willing to pay money to the 2 spoofers who called him. And if you listen to that,
that is so funny.
You are 100% convinced that Adam was convinced.
Yes.
He was ready to get in a plane and go anywhere they said to get that dirt on Trump. Let's remember, he also
met with Christopher Steele up in Aspen.
Thank you. That's where I was going. He witness tampered for the people who testified in his own committee, and specifically recently. We know that Adam Schiff has said that he has proof of collusion, yet will not bring it out. Now he's got proof of obstruction of justice. He won't bring that out either. He says he's got all this proof. So then he has proof that he has not given to anybody. He should go to jail for that. And then, who's the last one? Well, it's Hillary Clinton herself, because she threw all, and when you say Hillary Clinton And the 2016 election, you say Barack Obama, and you say, you might put an equal sign, equals George Soros, okay? And remember that this insurance policy Trump is talking about here, they never did a hearing on it, not even with the three renewals. So the 4 applications never had a hearing. It was an insurance policy. It was to cover them back to, remember what I just said, February of 2015, when they knew full well that Hillary was 100% compromised and a Chinese agent. It told her that, and she refused to do a darn thing about it. Then when they said, then when CrowdStrike said that they found Russian footprints there, a lie. Let's remember now we have Judicial Watch's proof. The FBI never looked at that server. They, now we know, never looked at the report of Dmitry Alperovich.
And they didn't look at the
report. FBI representatives, before their testimony 2, 3, 4 days ago, said they never read Christopher Steele's dossier, but they were there testifying about it. So remember that Five Eyes was spying on Trump the whole time. So the Brits were spying the whole time. That's the reason Spygate is the Crown Gate. It is not Russia Gate. It should be British Gate, because we know for a fact that Arvinder Sambai, we know for a fact that Alison Saunders, that Hannigan, Robert Hannigan, this GCHQ, all of them were 100% involved. Charles Farr, we know the head of the MI6, the head of MI5, they were all involved.
And they've been involved since 9/11, because you've got Arvinder Sambai working with Mueller back then.
So it's just absolutely absurd that they want to try to say Trump did something wrong when we are watching the unfolding, not only the alibis, but that their alibis aren't sticking together. And as soon as Michael Horowitz finishes his stupid IG reports, which, oh, by the way, those who said he was a white hat, he's a black hat. Black hat. He's as evil as they get. He was to be the next Robert Mueller in the District of Crime. And people want to say he's going to save the day. No.
Some people are emailing me, telling me that there's a strong resemblance between him and Jeffrey Epstein.
Yeah, they look a lot alike.
I said, like, what, they look alike? Are they both pedophiles? I mean, what is it? What is the similarity that people are seeing with the two of them? So I have to leave it at that, because we got to get to the 14th. We've got a Tom Fitton retweet. And folks, you need to go in and see this video. Tom's on fire. And the tweet reads, 4 FBI witness interview reports are missing, along with the notes of a meeting between the FBI and the intelligence community about Hillary Clinton's email server. How does the FBI lose key interview notes? It's either a cover-up or the investigation was a joke. But, I wish you wouldn't have said a joke. It was not a joke. It was a regime overthrow, a regime change. I mean, call it what it is.
I agree. And then I wouldn't say that it's either a cover-up or a joke. I say it's that and all that you just said and more, because this has never happened in history, okay? And now what he's talking about is something that most people don't get clear on, and let me make it a little clearer if I can. The intelligence community has their own inspector general. Each of the agencies does. And those inspector generals, that's where truth goes to die. When there's a problem in the agency, they have the inspector general do a report and they cover it all up, and then no truth ever comes out. That's just the way it is. And anyone who doesn't know that never worked for the government. That's just the way it is. The Department of Justice IG report on the FISA court said it should be closed down. They don't do anything right. Everything's wrong. They're surveilling everyone, and it's all illegal. And what do? Rosemary Collier wrote a correction agenda for them. They didn't accomplish any of it, and they went right on, and Congress approved that the FISA court go on.
And now we see with the Zuckerberg dossier that it was planned to be a surveillance tool from the very beginning.
Oh, yes, that is correct. The social media was all planned to basically be available to all Five Eyes. So as we were just pointing out yesterday, if you go to Open Source Works, which is now, it's a CIA program, but it's also Palantir. It is Peter Thiel is making it available for anyone. You can spy on anybody, and you can go in and look at anything on social media that they think they've erased even, and you can get it. Anybody can get it.
I bet the Chinese have a copy too.
Five Eyes got it. Israel has it. China, Russia, as I said. There's more than Five Eyes because the Brits are not our friends. And for instance, For instance, with Iran, and here's what I'm going to guess. I'm going to guess that the drone that took the picture of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard going to retrieve a mine that didn't blow up because it might have their fingerprints on it or it might show that it's Iranian-made, complete insanity, that would be British intelligence. That would be the gift of our Five Eyes. That would be just like the gift of our Five Eyes saying that twice that in Syria there were gas attacks. Once the investigations were done, there were no gas attacks. And now we get new reports out of Syria that there's massive bombing, killing lots of civilians. Who? Who is making these? It almost always comes back to a British company. It is in America under an American name, but all the profits go to Britain. And then we say it's Five Eyes. Don't believe a thing Brits say, period. Five Eyes needs to end. That agreement started in 1946 is illegal. It's against the Geneva Convention. They aren't our friends. It's unconstitutional, and it needs to stop. And so when we're saying that the IG report, or the intelligence community IG report, said that Hillary literally in February of 2015 was told that the Chinese were receiving every single communication of hers, which includes 750,000 communications, which ended up on Huma's laptop and Anthony Weiner's laptop. Well, they're also on President Xi of China's laptop, okay? They're also on Putin's laptop if he wants them, because he could just ask China. They're on everybody's laptop, because that was part of pay to play. That's the way Hillary did it. She ran it so everyone could get every detail of everything she was doing, because why? She's a globalist, and she wanted all globalists to get instantaneous remuneration for the money she accepted illegally against the Emolument Act. As Secretary of State, she received billions of dollars. Unbelievable that she hasn't gone to jail for that. And they even made an agreement between her and Obama saying...
Well, I know. Frankly, you've got a corrupt FBI. The DOJ's not worth anything, filled with SES operatives. So who literally is going to go tie her hands together and walk her to prison?
Well, Obama and her had an agreement that if she took money more than a certain amount or from our direct enemies, that she'd tell him. She didn't even tell him. And how could they make an agreement that they're going to throw out our Constitution and allow the Secretary of State to basically be paid off personally to give U.S. aid to foreign countries, also defense contracts, weapons, and she became the largest weapons dealer of any Secretary of State in history.
So she controlled the American purse, because not only did she collect money from foreign nations to her own coffers, she used the Treasury to give money through U.S. aid and OPEC to countries that further enriched her.
$86 billion just from USAID.
Daddy would have been proud of her.
Oh, yes.
You brought him? Boy,
oh, yes.
Oh, he would have been proud of her.
Oh, yes. $86 billion she got to control.
She became the mob queen of the whole world.
Yes, and with the help of Valerie Jarrett, who was teaching her, because she was a mob.
All those countries, they're suckers. They paid her.
Correct.
Well,
that's why Joe Biden needs to get elected, so he can continue to pay on the emolument deals that she had with all those countries.
Okay.
Please make sure you laugh at every poll that comes out, even if it's Rasmussen.
They're called propaganda polls.
If it's Rasmussen, add 15 to 20 points, and that's the only one you should believe. Secondly, unless it comes from Trump. And then secondly, please remember that even to the very moment that Trump won, the polls still said Hillary was going to landslide. No way Trump could possibly win. So when they came out and Biden, before even announced, jumped to be the leader, that's all lies. That's all lies. Do not believe that for 1 second. And when now they say Warren, because they've now probably done their oppositional research on Biden and found out that Trump will annihilate him in the first week if he actually gets the nomination. Because Biden has so much dirt. He is such a creepy sexual predator. I mean, don't even get me started. So Biden, everything he says, every single day is a gaffe. He can't open his mouth without saying a lie or a gaffe. Now, why does Elizabeth Warren jump out in front of him when she literally, a month ago was at 0? And now she's literally ahead of Biden because they jumped Biden ahead of Trump from the beginning. Remember that. Biden hadn't even announced, and they said that Biden would win against Trump. Lies, lies, lies. So now that they realize Biden can't win, they're going to put Kamala Harris and Warren and Booker up there and anybody else they can just to see if they can survive. And then at the end, it's just going to be the attempted manipulation because they think they're going to change the Electoral College. They cannot change the Electoral College. The Electoral College in each state has the right to cast their votes the way they want. But if they start messing around, they will upset an apple cart that they will never, ever, ever be able to recover from because illegal aliens will then control this country by voting. And they do now.
Want that. But they want
They
that.
do now. It's only by a landslide that Trump won. So when you're talking about polls, just laugh at them. When Trump is saying he's at 50, that's 65 or 70. Okay? And he knows it, but he has to go with what's out there. But don't you be fooled, folks. It's the 100,000 people who want to get into his announcement in his Florida rally should show you, as they compare the 25 people who show up for a Biden rally in a high school gym, just exactly like Hillary Clinton.
And would you please tell me why I care what Cher says? Why does Breitbart always have Rob Reiner and Cher? I mean, they actually think that that's a voice that we are listening to?
I'm going to tell you this, and I think I've mentioned it before. But Dianne Feinstein's aide in the Senate Intelligence Committee, Daniel Jones, went out after Fusion GPS was busted for Christopher Steele and all that horrible illegality they did and all that. He stepped up with Penn Quarter Group, and he got $50 million. Okay, we know $10 million came from Oleg Deripaska, a Russian. Isn't that nice? A Russian creating oppositional research against Trump, and they want to go after Trump for being connected to Russians. We know that some millions came from George Soros, but the rest of the balance of $50 million came from Hollywood. You want to know who? Rob Reiner, Cher, what's his name? The idiot that paints all the time.
John Kerry.
John Kerry?
Yeah, he's also on Breitbart. He's just crazy.
De Niro?
Yeah.
Okay. There's probably 10 of them.
Well,
they all
wait a minute.
donated millions.
But if Hollywood is owned by China right now, that's really money being pushed from China.
Yes, because they're losing their jobs. They're part of a union. And that is the tightest union in America, the Actors Guild, okay? And it is a ruthless thing where literally people in it say that you have to be sexually compromised or compromised by being filmed at things that you shouldn't be at to even be a member. No one gets a contract otherwise, period.
Even Taylor Swift?
No, Taylor Swift is in music. The Grammys are a little bit different, but they also are controlled.
She's being more crazy and demonic.
What
is happening to these young people?
Because that industry overwhelms anyone. No one can survive that industry because of the money, the fame, and you start to believe that you're a god. You start to believe you're a star in the sky, like Hercules was raised to the stars by the Greeks. That's who these insane, psychotic, sociopath, liar, con artists, these actors and actresses think they are.
Okay.
Now, let's remember, they're the ones putting up the money, and I say that they're paying Breitbart and other news agencies millions more so that they report whatever they say every day. Because
Breitbart
it's
is
stupid.
Just awful. I mean, you get maybe one story that's decent. The rest of it is trash like that.
Breitbart knows that if it doesn't run the garbage of the mainstream media, they will simply be clicked off. Same thing with Drudge.
Oh, Drudge is like, I go to Drudge to see what the opposition wants me to look at, and then I turn around and look the other way.
Free speech is almost ended. As we approach 2020, free speech will probably enter into the bottleneck worst situation it's ever been in American history. And so Trump can't fight this all by himself. If he doesn't have people in these agencies to actually do the work, then unfortunately some things are not getting addressed because he's one person. But I can definitely tell you this. He's going to win 2020 against all the efforts that they're going to make. It's going to be their last-ditch efforts, and they're going to die. Fang is going to die. All these social media groups are going to die. Because why? They're based upon lies, manipulation, mind control, subliminal control, and people are waking up, and illness is what's going to stop it.
Well, some people have always called it the shift. And it is. It's a shift of consciousness, a shift in geopolitics, economics, and people out here that are listening to us, you're the thought leaders to help your community and your circle of influence move through the shift in a way that they can understand.
And it's going on everywhere, and it's grassroots, and it can't be stopped. And that's what we're doing. We're sitting back laughing because literally the weeds are taking over the establishment, and the weeds cannot be stopped. So let's just keep on planting, and let's remember that one seed can turn into hundreds of seeds, which then can turn into tens of thousands of seeds, millions of seeds, billions of seeds. One seed, one candle can then light infinite candles and never, ever lose one speck of its fire. That's who we are. That's who you are. And that's what we have to keep doing. Lighting candles, bringing light to the world.